Now, I don't know about you all, but we worked long and hard to get our physical collection up to a point where it is. And now these people from Sony are showing up and offering us licenses instead of games. They took our disc.
They took our disc. They took our disc.
They took our disc.
They have taken my physical media.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Square, the PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, as always, is one Mr. Chris Figs, not back from the future, but in the present, so we can talk about the most hot-button topic of gaming of the last 2 weeks.
They took our discs.
They took our discs. Chris,
hey,
we had a fun little time doing a spin-off pilot idea that we were going to show to the patrons here soon before we started this episode. So I know you're just doing great now because we had a good fun time over there. Actually, I think it really was legitimately like a good social like lubricant to get us ready for this dumbass cold open we had going. But thank you for joining me as always. For anybody who's new to the show, we are a gaming podcast that looks at the industry through the lens of primarily being PlayStation fans. Though we play what we want, when we want, where we want. And for a long while there, it was getting easier to do that throughout this generation. And it might be turning back the other way as Xbox shakes things up, which is definitely something that's somewhere in the talk today. But if you haven't realized, the big thing that's going on right now is this little moment going on about no more physical games. So we'll get there. We will get there eventually. But first and foremost, like I said, welcome. We hope you stick around. If you like the show, consider subscribing, following us on Twitter. I don't really post there all that much. I should probably be a better steward to our social media. But we are on Discord. You can join in the link in the description below and talk to us day to day, moment to moment about various things, including talking shit about the podcast and the podcast open discussion. But Chris, we start this show off in a very simple time-honored tradition of checking in on what we have been playing. And that is, of course, to try and just figure out what maybe we should be playing next that each other are on, or maybe to give you guys, the listeners, an idea of what you should be playing next. Or maybe you hear something and go, maybe I don't want to play that next, and you skip out on it. But Chris, you got to let these people know you dumped some mad hours into Microsoft Word. Mad hours.
Yeah, I've been wording all week.
Is Microsoft Word your favorite ongoing live service game?
Yeah, 100%. It's even got a subscription model and everything. I love it.
It is. It's what gaming is. It's the zenith that gaming is working toward.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's the Game Pass for other people. Yeah, no, I haven't been playing much this week. It's more I haven't been playing much to talk about. You know, I've played a lot of MLB between stints of what I've been doing and a little bit of marathon here and there. Not as much as I was playing before. And then everything else that I've like kind of tried to play, it's like just hasn't held my interest as much as the other stuff I've been doing. So that's kind of where I'm at, where sadly, I'm a very boring what you've been playing this week person. Outside of one game, which we can talk about a little bit, but not much to talk about this week.
One game that you have listed here, which I actually am very curious to hear your thoughts on the other game listed here. But let's not downsize the fact that you've been playing a pretty hefty game of Will Chris finish this book?
I have been, yeah. No, I think I have a feeling this one will get done. It's just so fun.
There's a first time for everything, Chris. I know you can do
Jesus Christ.
Chris, let me give you your flowers for a second. You did finish a couple of short stories that I really enjoyed.
See? There you go. Thank you.
But now you just got to scale that up to a book, to a novel.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at like 60-something K words on this one. I think I'll get through it.
Yeah, you'll survive it out. But Chris, you got Palworld 1.0 on here. And this kind of sees the return of a lot of the things that kind of went into the aether as Nintendo's lawsuits kind of loomed over Palworld for quite a while. And this is also, of course, just the game finally being considered feature complete. Everything forward will be an additional add-on to the game rather than working towards ground zero. I know that that's kind of what they mean when they say Palworld 1.0, but you played enough Palworld in the early days, and I think you're a little bit more charitable to early access than I am, as we've talked about a few times on here.
I am.
Do you think 1.0 even any really longer means that this is the game we always intended to ship? Or do you think it's just you keep making a game and making changes based on what the community says and wants and what, in this case, you can and can't do from a legal standpoint? And eventually you hit a point where you go, this feels like 1.0, so I'm just going to put it on here? Or do you think that this was like a legitimate milestone they were building toward?
I mean, I'm sure it's a legitimate milestone. It doesn't really feel that much different fundamentally, but I don't think that I can really say that I spent the requisite amount of time with Palworld early access to like really judge it on its merits of the difference. I remember I liked the original Palworld. But I think it was kind of one of those things where we both played it, and I think we played it together for a while, and
very little.
I think we had like one session,
one time.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, but I also didn't feel a drive to go back. Again, that's because, no shade, maybe a little shade. It was on Xbox. I don't play games on Xbox. So like, yeah, it was one of those things where it just didn't hit for me. And then it came out on PS5 and I just never picked it up. And then last night I was kind of just like, I want to play something. And then I kind of saw it. I was like, fuck it. So I just bought it and then I've been ripping through it. I ripped through it last night and I've been playing today. It's a lot of fun. Like I almost messaged you today and to be like, do you want to play some Palworld? So I guess I'll extend that question to you now. If you'd like to play some Palworld, I would be down. You have access to it. I may try it again
just to get a feel for how it's changed. I wouldn't say that the early days were the most fun I've had in a survival game. I definitely understand the drive for certain people in the game. As weird as it's going to be to say this, I definitely understand why kids got so into it, because that's definitely a thing that happened. I'm not too surprised there, but across the board, I know that I would have access to it just by the way that we do stuff. And we'll talk about that actually a bit when we start talking about the rest of that stuff. But as a weird aside, I guess this is one cool thing about Microsoft setup. Since I bought that game on Xbox, does that entitle me to the Microsoft Store version on PC?
I would think so, yeah.
So it'd surprise me if it didn't. So all right, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm actually kind of between games right now. I guess I'll get to talking about that whenever we
talk about
what I've actually been playing. But I figured it would be. So yeah, I mean, I'm between games, which would be a good time to get me to attempt something else. It's harder if I started one of my other games that I'm debating starting, and I do have a couple. I think I know the one I'm going toward, but I did a rare thing and decided to download a trial of Saros before spending the $70, because I know that you're not just overtly interested in it, and I know the things I did and did not like about Returnal, and I'm kind of curious if this 3-hour trial or whatever can give me a feel for whether I want to spend the $70, because to give Returnal its props, I'm pretty sure I remember Returnal being a $50 game at launch.
You're right.
And I think that paying $50 for something that still doesn't really click for you, whenever it's something that is less of a known quantity, even if I paid $70 for Returnal, I think to some degree I could look at that and go, oh, it was a swing and a miss, but I tried it and I didn't know any better. But considering that Saros has been like heavily marketed on the fact that it's similar to Returnal, I think it'd be kind of stupid to spend $70, end up still not liking it, and then I'd be more mad because I knew to some degree what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of track with you? Where it's like it's almost like the food conversation we were having, where it was like, do you get pissed that you bought something and then you have to buy something else still? It's like, damn it, why did I do that?
Sometimes, but not. I mean, I don't know. I've kind of let it roll off my back. That's the way I am as a gamer. I just play something for 2 hours and then forget it exists.
That's fair. I guess I'm thinking a little different right now because my wife's about to have to undergo surgery where she's going to have a 6-week recovery time, at least minimum. So I'm going to be, I guess right now I'm thinking a little bit more money conscious than I even have to be, but I don't want to hurt my savings by having to do this. So I'm going to be paying for legitimately everything, including her car payment and insurance payment and some other stuff. It's back to school time for the kid, so I had to buy some clothes for her. And I'll talk about it a bit more in a bit, but I also spent some money on my PS3 today. So yeah, I think it's a time where I'm like, do I want to spend $70 on something that I don't necessarily need to? Let me add in the stipulation there that even if I spend the $70, it's PlayStation Network credit. So I shouldn't be so worried about it, but I guess I'm already in the mindset of being thoughtful about what my money's buying me. And that's still $70 of PSN credit that could go towards something else we both want. Hell, it could go towards Wolverine.
Yeah.
So unless you tell me right now that you're you're pretty strongly interested in Saros, I'll go ahead and pull the trigger. I intended to buy it, but I for once saw, PSN trial. I guess I could do that. I could use this aspect of this service that I have.
Yeah, I'm going to be real. You could buy it and I probably wouldn't play it. I'm not interested in Saros.
So what will happen is if I play the trial and I like it enough to want to keep playing, like if I feel the drive to be like, damn, I want to play more Saros, I'll buy it. And then one of these days, if you ever have a rogue moment, it's there for you. You know what I mean?
Like, I'll definitely download it and try it if you pick it up, but I don't. It's not, I guess, so I shouldn't say I won't play it, but I'm not like, oh, please buy Saros right now. If you were going to ask me, I'd be like, buy Assassin's Creed, because I would be more likely to finish that than I would be to play 10 minutes of Saros.
Which is funny because I have so little interest in Black Flag, but I've debated it because part of me wants to be like, just because I didn't like the opening hour of that I did play of Black Flag, whenever I tried playing the original in like 2020, which is only like 7 years after release.
Yeah.
But it felt bad. I don't know how this one feels.
I think Black Flag is good, and I would like to play it one day. I don't know if I will, when I will.
You talking about Resynced?
Yeah, Resynced. Because it looks great. And like, I'm just not a ship guy, but like, I like the story and the characters in Black Flag enough that it got me through the game. I doubt I would go and do all the diving missions or whatever the hell is in it, but I think Black Flag's a good one. It's one of the better Assassin's Creed. It's no 2 or Brotherhood, but nothing is.
You know, I'm a big proponent of saying, like, I don't judge Assassin's Creed as a series because I think it's probably succeeding at what it wants to do. I just don't want what it wants to do. You know?
Yeah.
So I normally am I'm pretty like, I'm not going to say anything strong about this game because it's just not my jam. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
All I can tell you is that if you were like, which one, it would not be Saros, would not be the pick I went for. So, you know, so.
Yeah. Would it be Rayman Legends Retold?
I feel like that's less than Saros personally. But again, I wasn't a Returnal guy. I thought it turned me off. You know, I'd rather play a 2D Housemarque game at this point, which will never happen. So we move.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of Housemarque time under my belt. I never really messed around with those. I think the only one that I've played is they did Super Stardust, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the only one I've done.
You didn't play Dead Nation?
It's a good game.
Dead Nation's fun. I love that game.
Yeah. I mean, they have a number of 2D games for the PS4 gen for sure that I remember. I just never really got around to them.
That's what they do best. And somehow when people go to Sony, they stop doing what they do best.
Though I will give them this. I remember before Sony bought them, if I'm not mistaken, they had already started shifting.
Yeah, they were going to make a live service battle royale, right?
Maybe. But I know that I remember it was
Retro is Dead was the article they put out, right?
Something like that. Yeah. And I could be misremembering, but that sounds right. And then Sony got them. So if you're correct on that, Chris, Sony maybe pulled them back closer to doing the things that they do best than what they would have gone to if they were just trying to follow the market.
Yeah.
But you're
Dude, I don't remember if I ever read this thing here. The Arcade is Dead letter. It kind of reads as like gamers suck, so we have to do something else.
Oh yeah, like gamers don't like a challenge, but then you make Returnal, which is like a challenging game.
The way it's written, it's like Nex Machina, our last game, got an 88 on Metacritic, and critics loved it, but nobody bought it. So now we have to do something different. Like that's kind of how it reads at the start.
Unfortunately, sometimes the truth just sounds kind of rough.
Yeah,
like it can be a great game, and it could score high, and critics could have loved it. And nobody bought it?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's true. Like, it totally can happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean you made a bad game.
You know? Critics loved it. Nobody bought it.
Yeah, so
what a game.
Is what it is. But yeah, anything else you want to say about Palworld?
No, I think we should give it a shot. I think it's fun. I will say it gives you a boss battle almost immediately that you can go do, so it does seem more active than what we played. It seems like there's a lot more stuff to do.
So on my side, I played a lot more Astral Chain while I was gone because I took my Thor and played it on the plane, and I took my Switch too because I was like, I want to try and play more Pokopia. I played Pokopia for like 2 hours one night and was like, yeah, this is just more of the same, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a hit on Pokopia, but in my 8 hours of it that I played, I'm fine. I don't really feel the need to play anymore. My wife played it. I'm not mad. I spent the $70 on it. Cool. I'm going to move on. Astral Chain still fucking rips. Having a really good time replaying it. Exactly as I anticipated. But sometimes you go back to a game that you really liked and you're like, what if on replay it turns out the game is just kind of mediocre?
Had that before.
More often than not, thankfully, games I felt a need to replay usually have landed again the second time. I'm trying to think if there's a strong example of a game where I played again and it was like, oh shit, this is actually not that great of a game. But I'm sure it's happened. It's almost undoubted. I did roll credits on Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. And I know we talked about it a lot last week, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But one of the things I actually want to note is that I know the Lego games are like meant to be funny, and this game continues to do a good job with that. But as I actually started to think about it and approach the end of it and got to the point of no return, even though it's a Lego story, this is actually like a really solid Batman story. Like it could definitely, if it was a little less gamified, it could probably be, the narrative could be a little bit tighter. This one is sort of coasting here and there on just going from one Batman era reference to another. But for the most part, it works. And what it's building toward and still doing in an originality sense, because it's still making its own story, totally could work as a Batman story. And you start to realize like Lego Batman is such a good fit because Lego have gotten to be known for this kind of like comedic take. And for as much as people who only watch movies forget, Batman's kind of a goofy character. Even though I actually do like when Batman is serious and like kind of melodramatic and like I like the dark, grounded Batman. And I even like where it gets a little more whimsical, but it still takes itself very seriously with like the Arkham games. I love those. But Batman's like known for being cheesy and kind of corny. And this game does a good job at keeping that in there while still feeling like a good Batman story. So kudos, Traveler's Tales. You guys really knocked it out of the park there. I had a fucking blast. I don't think I'm gonna go for platinum because I would basically have to beat the game again because so many of the collectibles are in missions that I would just have to go play the missions over again. And as much as I enjoyed the game, I'm not worried about that, Like I'm not really, what platinums have I really fought for this year? Not that many.
I think I've gotten 3. And like one of them was literally just, I played Marathon.
Fair. So yeah, the only other thing is, I think I told you, Chris, that a couple weeks back, I sent my PlayStation to a local place to have my OG backwards compatible PS3, my fat boy, have the thermal paste swapped out on it.
Ooh, yeah.
And finally, that guy went on vacation the week after the week I gave it to him. And then I went on vacation, so I wasn't thinking about it. And then I went out of town. And so it kind of just kept going. And he had it for a while, but finally he got it back and he showed me pictures of what the thermal paste looked like. And dude, it was dry as a bone. It was bad.
Oh boy.
So it's got new thermal paste. It's got a nice clean out on it. So I hooked it up today, plugged it in, made sure that it worked, started downloading Twisted Metal PS3 to kind of act as my trial game and make sure that the PlayStation Store and stuff was working for me. And just downloading Twisted Metal PS3 on this original PS3, I forgot how much heat that OG motherfucker puts out. And it makes me appreciate how little heat the super slim PlayStation 3 puts out.
Yeah.
Because I could hear it just... and dude, I was sitting there and I was like, this room is getting fucking hot. But PlayStation 3 is running like a champ. It's doing really good. I played an hour of Twisted Metal PS3 when I got home because I just let it download the game and I went back to work and had it turn itself off. And the PS3 is still a surprisingly modern piece of kit. I am almost every time I go back to use it, I'm like, feature-wise, this is not that far from a PS5 in terms of how you interact with it. It is surprisingly modern, and I guess that's the benefit of updates. But, dude, Twisted Metal PS3 fucking rips. I don't care what anyone says. I love that game. I know it didn't do well. It's exactly what you're talking about. I think it's a fun game. Nobody else gave a shit about it. It's probably why Twisted Metal has remained dead all this time.
Yeah.
When's the last time you booted your PS3 up in earnest and kind of fucked around with it?
It's been a couple months now. I keep my PS3 next to my PS5, so like it goes on more than you'd think. I think I'm still I'm still trying to finish the Medal of Honor Frontline Platinum. So every once in a while I go into that and like try and run that. That game rules, dude. I don't know if you can buy it. We'll talk about it later. You're not gonna be able to buy PS3 games anymore. Buy that one. That game still rips, dude. I love that thing.
Yeah, there's some classics, man. I downloaded I downloaded both that and Twisted Metal Black, the PS2 classic for PS3, because my wife really enjoyed when we were playing Twisted Metal 4. But I'll give her this. One of the biggest reasons that she struggled with it is that it's a very old game that doesn't really have analog stick support. So it's not a very easy to control game. If you play games enough and you played back then, you can adjust pretty quickly. But as somebody new coming in, it's not really friendly.
Yeah.
And secondarily on that, even on PS5, the game is really pixely. It's just the style of what 3D games could do there. And my wife was like, I struggle to just have my eyes land somewhere and me fully understand what I am looking at. And I'm like, okay. So she saw me playing Twisted Metal PS3 and she goes, this one looks so much better. She's like, I can see what's going on. I know where the car ends and the road begins. I was like, oh, yeah, but that's fair. Like, OG Twisted Metal fucking rips, but sometimes you're like, is that a building, a roller coaster, a street, another car?
And then sometimes
definitely
you'll never
when you
find
blow
out.
it up on these modern TVs, right? Where it's like, these were not made.
I've tried to get a CRT recently, actually.
Oh, really? Which one were you going after? Just any you could find?
Any of them, and somehow they're all too expensive.
They've had a renaissance where it's like people who've kept them long enough they kept them past them being useless.
Yeah.
And they've swung back around to now this $300 piece of technology.
Enjoy your retro games.
Dude, like it's a big deal for like PS2 like Guitar Hero and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, like I'll play some PS2 games on the HD TV. And I'm like, I know this doesn't look as bad as it looks right now. It can't.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It's almost
and
unplayable on those TVs. And it's like, I can't. I got to buy a CRT. I want to play Slugfest like an adult.
Oh, yeah. OG. See, that's the thing about like, there's a mix. Because what's happening there is that there's no filter to try and account for the way that it should look. Whereas at least when you're doing like emulation on modern devices, there's normally a filter you can turn on to try and account for that, which is interesting. Have you seen those things where like if you have an emulator on your phone, you can like run filters over it that reinterpret the image like with the coloring and shaders that they use? So it's like shader approximation to make your phone screen in the window that you're seeing the game happen. So if it's like a Game Boy game, it'll make your phone screen like a Game Boy, and then it'll have the square where the Game Boy image should have been, and the filter will be present there. And it makes it look pretty accurately like a Game Boy screen would have, so the game looks right. It's cool. It's a little complicated to set up, I think, but it's cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen them, but I have to look at that because that seems cool. I like stuff like that.
People are running that on the Thor that I have when they play certain retro games. They're like, make sure you run these filter plugins on them to like change the way that they look shader wise, which is neat. Yeah, dude, you don't have to tell me if you end up getting one. If you're going to spend big money anyway, try and find there's like a really late period, like 2006, 2007, Sony Trinitron that's like a flat panel CRT, and it has an HDMI.
Really?
Yeah.
So I could play PS5 on a CRT?
Yeah. Oh. And they've got all the hookups for that stuff. You can also, this is a little harder, you can get lucky finding CRT style monitors for computers back then that were higher resolution too, because that's the other thing is they also support HD resolutions, but cathode, so it's like, oh cool, you get a 720p CRT V. Like, this is cool,
dude. I found the Trinitron on eBay, 19-inch color video monitor, $2,999.
Oh, no.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. You can also look for rear projection TVs, which I don't know if you've seen those, where like it literally projects the image from the back on. You can get those look like they're supposed to as well.
Oh yeah.
But holy shit. Now you got me like curious as to what this is going to be. This is not the one I'm talking about. I'm curious if I can even find one of the ones I'm talking about. WEGA CRT flat retro game. This one's $800.
Dude, look at that. We're looking at the same one, that image of the Simpsons on there.
Oh boy.
Dude, I have a coupon code. I can get it for $807.50.
There you go. Keep going. Dude, this TV's beat to shit too.
Yeah, this isn't good. It does have that HDMI. Holy shit.
Yeah. Wild. Well, look, Chris.
Yeah, that's nuts.
This is how you really up your collection.
Yeah. I would love to get one of those and like kind of build it into an arcade cabinet, and then just have the consoles in there.
Yeah, for sure. Those are just pretty cool. But dude, you think normal CRTs are heavy, but if you get like a widescreen CRTV that's like a 42-inch,
getting bopped, dude, 1,000 pounds.
Like, it's so funny thinking about what breaking into someone's house used to be. Like, you're gonna have to have a second person to help carry the TV.
Well, that makes all the like, oh, the guy dropped my TV running from my house thing makes no sense.
Dude, we've come back around to, technically speaking, breaking into someone's house and seeing a CRT TV is now something you'd want to steal again. Like from like 2009 to like 2020, if you broke into someone's house and they had a CRT TV, you'd be like, fuck. But now it's like, how much can I get? $800?
I am taking it.
That's coming with me, man. Yeah, that's cool. I'm ready to see if I can manage to find one, because those are pretty cool. I've been thinking about it. I thought about getting one of those and making it my confidence monitor for the podcast in here.
That'd be sick.
But it'd be so big. Like it's not a good. I'd have to like reorient this entire room to make that work, which I might do. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think we have too much more to talk about with what we've been playing. We kind of knew that coming into it, and the news is going to be a weird one. I'll tell you. We last episode, we had a conversation so adjacent to this conversation.
I know.
That is hilarious that the day we posted the episode is the day that this fucking news hit. And I thought, if I've ever wished we would have waited one episode for some bullshit like, oh, my work is going late, can we record another day? It could have been something, but that's okay. Because now we get to have some similar versions of those conversations in an entirely new light. Because everything we were talking about there is cranked to fucking 11 here.
Yes. Holy fuck, man.
So let's just kind of start with what it is. You know what? I'm gonna put the one piece I wanted to talk about in before this, because we know that's the big moment. There's a smaller, interesting question that I have that comes up, or a point of reflection. You know that Xbox went like fucking scorched earth on everybody and closed a bunch of studios. We got those announcements right. Everything that we were talking about with like, okay, definitely Ninja Theory, Double Fine, Compulsion, Undead Labs, and Arcane Leon are the 5 studios that are being spun off into independent studios once more, or being bought by someone else. Okay, but on top of that, we know Microsoft did a bunch of layoffs, right? One of the areas that got hit was id Software out of Dallas, or technically Richardson, but the DFW area. And they had, I have this article open just because I was trying to be quick. This is from IGN. I mean, it's an article for information. It is what it is. If you don't like IGN, sorry. So Wesley Yinpool writes, on On Wednesday, a warn notice filed in Texas reported by game developer confirmed that 96 workers had been laid off in Richardson, Texas, home of id Software, with a further 40 remote roles cut. The cuts were part of new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma's reset of Microsoft's gaming business, which began with 1,600 staff losing their jobs on Monday. Another 1,600 will be let go during the rest of the current financial year. 4 Xbox studios are already out of the door, with another hot on their heels, that being Arcane Leon. Some have expressed concern that id Software would be unable to lead development on any new games in its current state, and that it might be relegated to support studio status. But in a new statement issued to IGN, id Software, id Software, said it was now at the staffing level it was back when it made the much-loved 2016 Doom reboot, and insisted it was still capable of making, quote, great games. So here's the conversation that I kind of wanted to have around this. And this is not me claiming to know anything. This is not me trying to make a point, because I don't know. But one of the things I feel like we keep hearing, and I think one thing that people are thinking about right now with this, is that it just lost a lot of people at a time when not only are they going to need to be spinning up work on a new game, it's highly likely that whatever that new game that they're spinning up work on is going to need to be made with next gen in mind.
I mean, you would think so, but at the same time, given what it sounds like Asha is shooting for, it could be coming much faster than that. You know, could we see another Doom game built off the edges of Doom? You know, I don't know, not built off the edges, but like using a lot of the stuff from the old games to make a new Doom game, and we get that in 2 years. You know, is it something where they're going to be like, we want efficiency, we don't care if people on Twitter are complaining about Craig's face or that the animations for the reloads are the same, make a new Doom game and get it out in 2 years?
Yeah, maybe. It depends, right? Did work on another Doom start as soon as Doom Dark Ages came out last year, where it'd see a 3-year development period? And is it going to be mostly asset flips like we saw with quite a bit of what, you know, Obsidian did with Fallout New Vegas? Maybe. I mean, I could see that. I think the question just is, I guess we're kind of skirting around my point anyway, which is, but people basically keep saying that the more complicated that the hardware that the games are made for becomes, the bigger teams you have to have in order to make games that account for that. I am not a developer. I don't know how true that is, but I kind of find it really endearing, even though I know that what's really happening, most likely, if we go Occam's razor style, is that id Software is kind of just saving face and trying to have a good PR statement to go, yeah, we lost a good chunk of our employees, like half of our employees, but we can still make games. And here's an example of when we made a game at this same scale. I know that at the end of the day, it is just PR.
Yeah. That's the thing with the... Go ahead.
Well,
no, I mean, that's the thing with...
But that's, yeah, why can't you make a game with the same studio size? Is Doom Eternal or Dark Ages really significantly longer or even bigger scope games than Doom 2016? I haven't played either one of them, so I don't know.
I mean, I felt like Eternal was, but I also felt like Eternal was in the wrong ways. You know, I remember when I played through that last year.
Yeah.
I had said, like, there's a lot of... It's still Doom. It's still fantastic. But then also I'm doing a bunch of annoying platforming and shit like that. It's like, do we get a more focused Doom? You know, do we get a reboot again? You know, and it's just, hey, make a couple levels, put the Doom guy in it, put some demons, send it. You know, that's the question. Like, what are they going to be? The thing is, like, with all the Xbox stuff, you know, it's like, I want to be upset about id, and I want to be upset about Obsidian and, you know, Arcane, and, you know, God bless the rest of them. State of Decay, you know, like that, all that's nuts. State of Decay is a killer, but it's like, I don't want to make too many snap judgments until I see what they do, because honestly, like, let's say they put, you know, Obsidian, Bethesda, and Exile, and hey, you guys are all going to rotate Fallout and Elder Scrolls games. How mad am I at that? If I can get a good Fallout game every 4 years,
yeah,
am I okay with that? And my gut says yes. Like, I would love to play more Fallout, but the question becomes, like, if Fallout and Elder Scrolls become like Call of Duty games, A, they can't be nearly as good, you know, they can't be as expansive and as fun if they're coming out every 1 to 2 years, and when does it get stagnant and boring? I don't know, but I have a feeling that we're going to find out.
See, I'm not surprised by the Obsidian thing at all, because I think the most sensible thing for Obsidian when you're trying to do this and you're trying to focus in on them is to do exactly what I said, because there was a rumor going around for a bit that Obsidian might be a studio getting closed as well, and thankfully it's not. But I remember when that rumor hit, I said, I feel like this can't be true, because if so, this seems to completely fight Asha's statement that she wants to double down by focusing on their big IPs, such as Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and Halo, and stuff like that, right? And when I look at something like that, the most obvious way to up your time is to go, hey, Obsidian, this studio who's worked with Bethesda before and is somewhat has a history with the way that Bethesda makes games and their tech. Hey, you guys make the next Fallout while they're making Elder Scrolls 6. And then, because of how long games are starting to take to make, if you think about it, Elder Scrolls 6, from everything we're seeing, is seemingly still about 2 years away. Mm-hmm. Okay? And Bethesda Game Software Studio, whatever, also got some layoffs. I don't know how much it's affecting, Elder Scrolls 6. But the point being is that if they start working on a new Fallout now, and let's be kind and say it takes them 5 years to make, and that means that 3 years after the next Elder Scrolls, we have a Fallout game. We have the next Fallout game. And once Bethesda Bethesda Games software, whatever, starts working on the game following Elder Scrolls, it makes sense for that to go ahead and be the next Fallout game. Mm-hmm. But conversely, what you do is that you then go, hey, you guys who made Fallout, you start working on the next Elder Scrolls, and we'll do the same thing we did last time. It won't be Elder Scrolls 6. It won't be Elder Scrolls 7. It'll just be Elder Scrolls, and we'll give it a name. Just like your Fallout game is not going to be Fallout 5. It's going to be Fallout spin-off name. And I'm totally fine with that. I think it's an ideal way to get more. It's in a weird way, it's like a more convoluted Insomniac method.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But what's great about it is that you actually get to have a little shakeup in the franchises too, because I love Bethesda, or at least I've loved Bethesda's Elder Scrolls games, but I'm not going to lie, I have wondered in the past, what would an Obsidian-led Elder Scrolls game look like? Because they have just a very different way of approaching fantasy and character writing and what an RPG is and what RPG isn't. And
let me ask a hard question. Outside of New Vegas,
yep,
and remove our care for Outer Worlds,
yep,
has Obsidian actually made any successful games?
Yeah. Are we about to
other
have
than Grounded? I forgot about Grounded, but
Grounded's actually a great game. It's really good.
Yeah,
I haven't played Grounded 2. So, look, but what do you mean by great? Because this is,
I don't know what I mean. I asked the question a little weird, but like what I'm thinking about in my head is like the only game in my head I love Obsidian, but I feel like the only game that they've come out with that I think was like universally something that commercial. Let's put it this way: have they ever made a commercial success outside of Grounded and Fallout New Vegas? Because I think the answer is no, which makes me wonder, like, my question more becomes like, was Fallout New Vegas, does it have the Game of Thrones problem where like the guys who were making the show were really good at adapting what George R.R. Martin was doing, but when George R.R. Martin stopped giving them stuff to do, it fell apart? People love Pillars.
I get
but
where
it's
you're going.
Not commercially viable.
Where you're going. What I will say is, I think the question here, and I don't have the answer. The question is, what people at Obsidian were responsible for the way that New Vegas primarily showed face, like the way that it was presented, like the character writing, the story, the setting, things like that. Because those are the things that people tend to love about New Vegas, and the fact that New Vegas is like very hardcore RPG. In comparison to 3. If we're being real, 3 still has way more RPG mechanics than like 4. If we're being real about the Fallout series, 4 is avowed for, in many ways. Unfortunately, it's kind of true.
I don't know that it is, but that's more of an indictment of avowed than a praise of Fallout 4, for the record.
I was just about to say that I don't think it's quite as strong in the other direction as Avowed, because I still want to say I don't think Avowed's a bad game. I just don't think it has any preoccupations of being an RPG. Other than that, visually, it looks like it'd be one.
Well, that's the biggest problem with it, is it wants you to think it is, which means you play it the way like that, and it's not that.
Yeah. So
it's a weird game.
With all that in mind, though, I think the question there is for your comparison point to make sense. What would have to be is that Bethesda would have had to have basically told them what to make, and then them just adapt what they got from Bethesda. But from everything I'm seeing, New Vegas was an original idea from the people at Obsidian. So the question becomes: are those people still there? And if so, I think there's a higher chance that yes, they could pull this off.
I'm not. First of all,
it just comes down because I think the Outer Worlds does a lot of what Fallout New Vegas did well, not to the exact same degree because it was a double-A, but it was a double-A game made in a very different way. And even then, the Outer Worlds is a little less of an RPG, not in a bad way necessarily, but it's less of an RPG than I think New Vegas is.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I know that the rumors are saying that the new Fallout will be a Josh Sawyer game, which he is the one behind Fallout New Vegas. Yeah. I don't know. I'm asking like a weird question, but I'm just kind of thinking like, we all are emotional, or people can be emotional about these layoff things and their favorite studios and all this kind of stuff. But like, I guess when I'm thinking about the question and we're having this conversation, my head immediately went to like, if I was Asha and I was looking at Obsidian and looking at their body of work and being like, okay, you guys gave us The Outer Worlds, which wasn't ours. You guys gave us Pentiment, which did nothing. It might be a great game, but it did nothing. The Outer Worlds 2, nobody bought. That flopped. Grounded was a 13-person team or whatever it was. Pillars of Eternity are niche CRPGs that are not going to sell us millions of copies. It's one of those things where like I'm thinking about it and I'm like, what saved them? Is it only the fact that like they have New Vegas in their history? So usually when you look at them in a spreadsheet, you go, well, we can put them on a new Fallout game because they've done it before, and that's their saving grace. That's more of what I'm asking,
I think it's probably that and Grounded, if I'm being honest. Because Grounded was a surprising return on investment, because it was a very cheap game for them to make, and it seemed to do well.
Well, I think that's the problem with Grounded is like, let's say for this new Fallout flops. It won't. It's a Fallout game. It won't flop.
Yeah.
But like, do they look at Obsidian and go, yeah, you guys are 100 people. The only game you've made that was worth it for us as a company, as an entity, was made by 13 of you. So 87 of you are fired.
I could see that. But I'd say, look, what we do know is that Bethesda themselves can't turn around and make these games any quicker, right? At least not without severe bureaucracy changes to how the studios do things. And like, if you listen to all this, you do hear this thing of, like on average, Microsoft, like Xbox developed games that were in-house had to go through 14 layers of management.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
So if you start thinking about that, some of these layoffs, if some of these layoffs are specifically people who are in that middle management area, which is cutting down this unnecessary oversight, then like you said, it's easy to get emotional about layoffs, and I'm sure you can dig in and see these things. So if you can look in and see that a lot of the positions are middle management, and then the other ones are just ones that have to happen for them to hit a certain point of profitability so that every other person's job can stay around, then I think that you might be able to piece out what's going on here. I think it's a game studio like Obsidian that has the history it does and has the name cachet, even if it's a ship of Obsidian situation. I think what comes down to is you're only going to get more out of Fallout and Elder Scrolls if you have somebody else that you can trust the work to. So there's a benefit to having different people make the games, even. Like, hey, a completely different studio will look at the series in a different way. So, but yeah, we kind of drifted from it, but my real question is, why should I just believe that that teams have to be bigger to make games nowadays? Is that actually true, or is what Asha Sharma is saying true? Are most modern game studios full of unnecessary fluff because there's too many layers of middle management? And is that a compound problem? Is that also why games are taking longer? Is it a bit of both? Is it that we have too many hands and too many layers of approval which makes every single thing take longer. And it also makes it seem more people are in the pot, which makes the game's budget go up, which exacerbates the problem that game prices need to raise. And it just feels like there's a chance that all these things are related because gaming has become too corporate almost.
Well, look, the thing is, like, the gamers as a whole wouldn't, I don't think they would accept what it would take to make these games fast, because you see it. You know, you see the Kratos bow animation stuff we've talked about hundreds of times. But you even see the stuff with, like, there was a viral clip of Assassin's Creed Black Flag the other day, and people were saying, oh, this game is terrible because a flag glitched out and stopped blowing in the wind. And it's like, guys, like, who the fuck cares? And that's the problem with, I think, having these conversations, is that gamers will say so much stuff, but the reality is, like, they don't really believe it. You know, like, I think I would accept, let's call them asset flips. You know, a Fallout 3 to a New Vegas. I would be okay with that if the game was good. But I think the problem is, like, companies are scared of people going and doing and pulling a Craig, you know, or doing look, the boat animation is the same, or Aloy moves different. Or even when they change stuff, why did they make Aloy uglier? You know, or all this kind of stuff. So I think budgets have gotten to this point because people don't accept less. And I'm not saying you should. I know that's how that sounds when you say the words out loud. But if The Last of Us 2 could have looked 5 times worse and had a lot of the animations from The Last of Us 1, and there were assets where it's like, that kind of looks like the building from this building in The Last of Us 2 has the same layout as this building from the Last of Us 1, but the scenarios changed and everything around it's changed. And I'm not saying they don't do any work. You know, I'm not saying they put New York and then say, oh, this is Chicago, the Empire's, that's the different building. You know, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if we could cut down these times and use these shortcuts that are there, they have all this stuff, and they're not using it because I think they'll go on Twitter and they'll see some douchebag like Pirate Nation going, oh, well, the animation is the same, so Sony Santa Monica is lazy as fuck. So they go, okay, games are going to cost more, and because we're trying to make them perfect. And I think you look at teams that don't do stuff like that, you know, even Radalaika, right? Great example. Those games are all random little indie things or asset flips or, you know, Unreal stock animation stuff. Those games are $3. And as we've discussed multiple times on this show, those games are usually pretty good. Usually it's probably strong, but a lot of the time pretty good, you know. And I
would say that of the ones I've played, the majority were good enough to warrant existing and their price tag.
Exactly.
So here's one thing I think is interesting about that is, like, I don't think anything you're saying is wrong. I think you can definitely make games quicker from, like, reusing assets and animations in clever ways. One of my favorite go-to examples of a game that even though this is 100% true and Ubisoft has confirmed it, Far Cry Primal literally uses the same basic map structure as Far Cry 4, but then they just changed everything on top of it. But it's the same, like, the body of water is the same, but they make changes to it, and then the setting change. I never realized that they were the same, and the only reason anybody realized it is because if you look at the overworld map that you can, like, pull up and overlay it with the one from 4, you like, oh, this is kind of the same map, but you don't feel that when you're playing it. But so look, those things are there, and I get where you're coming from, and I think that those could help, and people should calm down. But then I think there are really good examples going further back, but then even more recent ones, because I think you got to be careful about going further back, because what else was different? But my go-to example is, like, God of War 3 was, like, new everything. They were creating this skeletal muscular system for Kratos so that as he was being animated, you would see the muscles move under the skin of the character model. And that game, God of War 3, was made in 3 years between 2007 when God of War 2 released and 2010 when it released. And it was probably being worked on a little bit before that, so I want to give it 4 years, right?
Sure.
All right, then we look at a game If we look again, something that's actually maybe even a better example of still moving the tech forward from what was there before it. Let's look at Spider-Man Miles Morales. From everything we're seeing, that game started work at least around the time that the original Spider-Man launched in 2018, and that game came out in late 2020, right? Yeah. So roughly we might say it was being made in 2.5 years. And that game also pushed the tech forward. And look, I'll give credit to, when we compare what studios are doing, I want to give big credit to Sony Santa Monica for being able to turn around and release God of War Ragnarok 4 years after God of War 2018. If I remember, Ragnarok was a 2022 title. That's awesome. We have not seen a lot of that across the industry. And I wonder why. And there might be the most elegant answer that's the same for most studios, and there might be a reason that Insomniac was just able to do certain things in a certain way. But I do feel like it gets hard to not have this background feeling that the reason that the games industry has gotten so bogged down is because of unnecessary management oversight, which has led to all the rest of the problems that are downstream of that. Inflated budgets, inflated time, because going through 14 layers of management takes time. If you have to have 14 different groups of people sign off on one decision as opposed to, 3, that adds time to every decision made about the game. And if you have that in every department, I don't know if they do, but if they do, that's a bad example of how it just continues to kind of scale up from there, right? It's like an exponential problem. And so if you cut all that down, I guess it goes back to what I'm saying. It feels like it's an example of gaming becoming too corporate. And I think if you think about where we were, when gaming was kind of fast like that, we did kind of like, gaming was being talked about, even if it's not true, it was being talked about and celebrated a bit more, like the artistry of it, like, or just the fun of it. But now it's become this different thing, and the way that people look at it seems to have kind of undermined that. And it seems like not only has the way it's presented gotten more corporate, but the way that it's being made has gotten more corporate. And both of those things are just stacking up against our developers.
Yeah. Shit, I had a thought and I totally fucking lost it. That sucks.
Well, it is what it is. If you want to wait a second, try and come back around to it, I'd love to hear from you. But whenever you're ready to move into the end of physical, I'm there for you. Because that last topic really just comes down to, it's a huge curiosity of mine. And I would love for someone who has the means to dig in and try to be like, can we understand the differences between studios? And can we try to isolate factors that seem to have made this shift happen over time?
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's interesting because what I've noticed too is like the longer a game takes, the more scrutinized it's going to be.
100%.
Like Grand Theft Auto 6, if that game's not perfect, they're going to hear about it, And it's going to have stuff that happens that's very normal. It's going to have glitches, it's going to have bugs, it's going to have glitches. The servers aren't going to go up, are going to crash for GTA Online. And they're going to deserve every bit of criticism they get. But at the same time, it's like, damn, that sucks, They can't even put this game out and have some warts. They shouldn't, but everything does.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And it goes into, this is not quite the conversation. I don't want to derail us entirely, but it is quick. Mixtape, we talked about last week, right? Okay. Last episode. And that I put out that mixtape short, and I did. People had a lot to say about it. And what I really want to get to is a quick note that gaming is so weird because it's not like this is the only industry that this happens in. But I've come to the very strong realization that I don't think a game can be objectively good or bad. And Chris, that's not me actually trying to throw that at you, because I think that there has been times where you said it's an objectively bad or objectively good thing. But give me a second before you respond to that. I think that maybe I mean that in a soft way. Because let's think about let's think about games that have blown up and become like cultural moments that everyone talks about, right? I've never played My Name is Mayo, but almost everybody knows what it is, and it has a lot of people who defend it. Now, am I saying that anyone's out there saying their favorite game is My Name is Mayo? No. But what does My Name is Mayo set out to do?
Be interesting. Start a conversation, have one of the best trilogy stories in video games.
Okay. And one of the biggest things it sets out to do is kind of have a shock value of it's hold on. you're a mayo jar and that's it. And my point there is, for what My Name is Mayo is trying to do, I think it clearly succeeds, right? Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree. Yes.
Okay. Do you think My Name is Mayo is a good game?
No, not really.
Why? If it does the thing it sets out to do, what makes it bad?
I don't know. Like, I don't have a good answer for you, really. Like, I'm trying to think of one. It's just like, no.
So what I want to kind of key in on here is that I've long intuited this. This makes sense, right? And I think if you listen back to what this podcast is, I think you'll hear me say a version of this, where if you read between the lines, you'll get the same thing that I'm saying here. There's this YouTuber who makes videos. He's fantastic. Most of his videos are really interesting. And it's Daryl Talks Games. Mm-hmm. And he put out a video talking about can games be objectively bad? Like, can you objectively look at them there? And one of the things that he said in there that I thought was like, yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about, is he was talking about he usually, and it's exactly, you've heard me say a million times, I don't like putting scores on games. What I like to say is a game, when I'm playing a game, it's trying to do something. If I think what it's trying to do, it's getting across, I think that that's cool and that's good and I enjoy it for that. But what do we really mean when we say that we love a game? Every game has got issues. What we really mean is that we normally mean that the things that we like about the game outweigh the things we don't like to such a degree that the things that we don't like don't even matter anymore. And I guarantee you Grand Theft Auto 6 will have some of those moments. And there will be people who are, like, as much as you said, there would definitely be people who bitch, but there will also be people who are just like, this comes with the territory and it's okay. So he said something, or actually maybe it was one of the comments, but he was talking about when the thing that the game is succeeding at is aimed at the things that you like, you are so much more likely to forgive the things that you don't like about it because of how tailored it is to you. And I think it was a comment. Somebody said, a 7 out of 10 aimed at me is better than the best 10 out of 10 not aimed at me. And that is like the truest fucking statement out there, because it started making me think. Most people's favorite games are actually not games that were considered perfect at their time. They are games that had flaws, but the ones that have flaws are usually also the ones that are trying to break the rule of how you make games and how you make a medium. What games are interesting? We think a game's interesting whenever it breaks convention, right? And it does something that you normally wouldn't think a game should be made to do. Those are the ones that are kind of memorable. But I do want to hear your point.
I don't think what you're saying matches the argument you started.
Let me ask you this, Chris. I want to shift the medium for just a second. Just I'm curious to see where you land. What's your favorite movie? Like, what's the movie that you go to and watch more often than anything else? And every time you watch it, you're like, I am having such a good time. I'm loving, like, I'm here. This is great. What's that? What's your go-to movie?
Training Day.
Training Day. Do you think Training Day is an objectively perfect movie?
Yes.
I mean, that's a good answer. I'm glad that you said that, because I'll tell you, for me, and I'll probably for a lot of people, but I know somebody whose favorite movie is Hobbs and Shaw.
That's a perfect movie too, though.
Now, is it a perfect movie for the same reason that Training Day is?
No.
So my go-to example, one of my favorite movies of all time, and every time I watch it, I have a fucking blast, is the DJ Qualls movie, The New Guy. I fucking love that movie.
Okay.
I know in my heart of hearts that it is not intended to be peak cinema. I know that it doesn't meet the quality for someone to go, yes, film. And yet I fucking adore it. It's like, it's so good.
Here's the problem with this entire fucking conversation. Is that anyone can say objectively, but nothing is objective. So what we're basically talking about is, I can have an opinion on that you don't have.
Yeah.
I think there are instances where Lord of the Rings Gollum is a bad game.
Yeah.
Walking Dead Destiny's bad game. And you can argue that, it got in its own way or whatever it is. That doesn't make it good somehow.
I want to throw out there that I don't mean a game can't be bad. I just think that there's someone out there who played Lord of the Rings Gollum and was like, I like this.
Sure. And there are people who dress up in fursuits to have sex. They put on more clothes to get laid. That's, like, people can like things. That doesn't mean that they're good. And I think that's the thing.
I like what you said is that, nothing is truly objective. And I guess what we'd say is like, we like to think like the objective things are facts, right? Like it is objectively 96 degrees Fahrenheit.
No, because all objectively means when we're talking about anything artistic is I am looking beyond my bias. That is it. That is all you can mean when you're talking about objective. You cannot be objective about a work of art. That is physically impossible. Nobody is objective about works of art.
I think
every movie affects someone differently.
A small
but look, you and I look at images differently.
Sure.
We see things differently. We have different opinions on games. We have different opinions on music. We have different opinions on, tons of stuff. But I think when we're talking, this to me is when we're talking about this is objectively good, objectively bad, objectively whatever. I can, for the most part, look at you and go, I don't like this game. You should play it.
Yeah.
Because I know what you consider in your head good. Right. And I know I try at least to think that like I can kind of tell your taste. Right. I told you you're going to like Bond more than me. Right. Like we talked about it on the show. And that's, I think, the point, right, is like I can, and I'm just using myself as an example, but like when I'm talking about opinion, I can look at something like James Bond or even like Conan, where like I didn't like Conan. I was in it for the easy platinum, but like I can see why you enjoyed it. It's the same thing as like you can hop into Marathon or you can hop into Arc and you can go, I see why he enjoys it. That's when when you're talking about anything art, no matter what it is, when you're saying objectively bad, objectively good, all you're saying is looking past my bias, this is good. That's all you can be saying, because it is not possible to say something is objectively good or objectively bad and mean it in the dictionary definition of objective. It's not possible, because anything is opinion. Every single thing is opinion. Objectively, Training Day is a perfect movie for me.
Yeah.
It can only be my opinion.
So, conversation we had earlier, not in this podcast, you were talking about the Steve Jobs quote where he's like, people don't know what they want until you give it to them, right?
Right.
Okay. Or until you tell them they want it, maybe I should say. But of course, the idea is people don't know what they want until you show them it's an option. That's really the idea, right? You show that the reality's there. So what I mean by that is sometimes people truly do, in my opinion, I think people look at the word objective and they're using it as a metric against this monolithic pillar of what this thing is and the way that they view it. And that's why I use Mixtape as a good example. People are like, it is not a video game. And that's just not true. It is a video game. No matter how much you wish it, no matter if you wish it were more interactive, maybe it's not the most interactive video game in comparison to something else, but it is a video game. And when people are looking at that, I think that they're looking at a standard that they are comparing, and they're going, objectively, this is not hitting this standard, therefore it's not a game, or it's a bad game. It's bad at being the thing that I think it is, because they're trying to compare it to a standard. But I think that there's times where what do we normally like in any given genre or in any given medium is when eventually somebody does something that bucks a trend and shows you that there's a different way of doing it and does what Steve Jobs said. It shows you something that you didn't know you wanted, but for certain people, they experience it and they go, oh shit, I do want that. I do want a cherry barbecue burger, whatever. What was it? Cherry Coke barbecue burger?
Cherry Coke. Yep.
Yeah. And that, I think, is what I mean is, and maybe it just, like you said, it's just the way that we view the substance of the words behind it. But I think sometimes people build a monolith and say, this is the thing that we're comparing against. Therefore, this is the thing that we based objectivity off of. My actual opinion is the way you're saying it, I think, is how it should be viewed. And I agree with you. I just don't think that that's how everyone does it, at least not in online discourse, even if it's them being dishonest with themselves. But Chris.
Brett.
Instead, let's hear your opinion about how objectively good or bad it is.
Oh, God.
That PlayStation is going to be doing away with the disc. So, piece of news we have here. On July 1st, PlayStation dropped 2 news articles. We're going to talk about the first one. Physical disc production ending in January 2028 for new games releasing on PlayStation consoles. This is on the PlayStation blog. It says, in response to shifting trends and consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. That's really all you need to hear. I guess I'll add this. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical disc. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. There we are. Chris.
Yeah.
We had a microcosm of this conversation last week in specifically relation to Grand Theft Auto 6, yeah?
Yeah, kind of.
Now that we're moving the scale up considerably, where does your stance sit within where this is at, you know?
I think it sucks for you. That's kind of my take. I don't like that it's going away. I think it's a dumb decision. I don't even know that I would say it's a dumb decision. I think it's a exceedingly cheap decision. I don't think that it costs all that much to make discs, and I don't think it really costs you that much to make them a boutique item if you really want to do that.
Agreed.
I don't know. I mean, it's weird because like I am a digital gamer. You know, we've said it multiple times. You have access to my library. It is fucking stupid. Everything I buy is digital. Mostly everything I buy is digital. But I do miss it going away in the way of like, I would probably have never played KCD if it hadn't been on sale physically. But
opportunity meets time and place.
Yes. And it was also like when I was in the mood to take that leap, it was full price on PSN and 30, 20 something on Amazon, right? So it was like it all kind of came together. But like for the most part, if I'm buying a game, I saw it in a sale or it's a new game that I was going to play. All right. GTA 6 is pre-ordered. Halo is pre-ordered. Blood of the Dawnwalker is pre-ordered. And guess what? Final Fantasy Resonance will also be pre-ordered because those are all the games I'm looking forward to. I know I'm going to play them and I'm not worried about a disc. You know, that to me, it's just the easiest way to do it. Do I like having discs? Yes. Do I wish they were saying yes? Am I going to boycott with you? Not a fucking chance. So
sure,
that's kind of the way I feel.
And do you mean royal you or do you specifically mean me?
No, I mean the anti-physical people in general. I know, or you know what I mean. The people who are anti this decision. Yeah. I know you to be one of them. Yes. But just in general, like I bought a digital game today. Like I'm not participating.
Sure. I do like physical, but you know that my concern is with the ownership of digital. Yeah. And I will be the first to say, if this somehow leads to a conversation, be it through force of regulation boards or through Sony hearing out the words and thoughts of its user base, which seems unlikely if I'm being honest. If a change is going to happen, it's going to be because of regulation board most likely. But my opinion on this will change almost entirely, pretty much entirely, outside of it's always cool to have something physical, like collectible aspects of anything is cool. If the only thing that changes is that we get new digital ownership rights and we have something much more akin to what it is like to own a game when you buy a physical disc, I actually have very little problem with this. I still think it'd be cool to allow boutique shops, like you said, and then charge a premium for that. Go, hey, as part of this, we're going to make less discs, so there's less for the people that want them, and we have less waste. And also, when you buy a game that way, there will be an upcharge because of the nature of us having to do this extra work that we're only keeping around as an option for the people who like that option and exercising that option. I think that's a good thing. The secondary thing is I'm a big fan of buying locally. I think that it's really important for you to spend the money that you can in the area that you live because it impacts everything around you. It impacts the job market in your area, the availability of stores in your area, because if people wholesale just stop buying from around them, then you have things happen like here. We lost our Radio Shack a few years back because people were just finding cheaper alternatives. And not the same, not even apples to apples product, but eventually Radio Shack couldn't compete and they closed down. But guess what? Now when you need something day of, you don't have an option here. That's completely gone. And the people that worked at Radio Shack were impacted. And that's my community. Those are people I interact with. And those are people that also pay into taxes, which has them live here, which has them affect what my road quality looks like, what business opportunities are coming into here. Those are two important things. And the shift to digital has interestingly enough, Chris, in Arkansas has a really big hit on both of those because an odd benefit to buying digital games in Arkansas.
Sorry.
When you buy digital games in Arkansas, you do not have to pay taxes on them. Digital media in Arkansas has zero taxation. Arkansas is a very broke state, and it needs every bit of money it can get. Ironically, shifting to all digital actually impacts my state a bit more than you would otherwise imagine, and that's going to have tax ramifications that have to be made up somehow. So that's kind of my immediate thing here. I actually don't want to rant on this too much. What I do want to focus on, like I said, is the ownership aspect of it. And I think that the next piece of news they coupled with this is one of the, I'm not going to say damning. It is very interesting timing because while it is not the worst version of events, it is a precursor to a feeling of what people think about when they think about all digital. And then you couple this with the fact that it wasn't long ago that Sony revoked a lot of movie licenses that people paid for, and you just no longer have access to those things. So I'm going to kind of leave it there, Chris. Before we move into the next piece of news about PlayStation 3 and Vita, is there anything else specifically to the disc, the disc format side of things? I have one question for you, actually. You're talking about being on digital already, correct? Mm-hmm. And that you like this idea of sometimes being able to stumble into games physically on sale that will make you try a game you otherwise wouldn't have. And right now, I'm sure you would say that you could have that same experience on PlayStation Store right now because sometimes games see steep discounts on the store. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a little less often, but it still happens.
I think you see better sales on the store regularly, actually.
Cool. So this is a question. I don't think I'm sure someone out there is going, yes, there's a wrong or right answer to it. In your experience and with what you're seeing, do you think that the option of physical that acts as a counterbalance that digital has to think about when they consider pricing and doing sales, do you think that the removal of this alternative ability to find these games, and I want to clarify that on here it talks about consumer preferences. I don't think that this adequately accounts for the fact that way more games releasing today are indie games that cannot afford to be released physically. When you actually look at games that have physical versions, the split is not nearly as strong as people think they are. If you look at even PlayStation games, Astrobot was almost half physical, half digital, skewed a little bit in favor of digital, but 55% digital, 45% physical, whatever it was, is not that's a hefty size of disc. But Hollow Knight Silksong, for example, is a digital only game. So of course, when the majority of games are coming out are indie and therefore digital only, then yes, the numbers would lead you to believe and technically are overwhelmingly digital. But when you pull it back to games that have always released physical because of the scale of the game they are, the numbers aren't so cut and dry. With that in mind, do you think the removal of the competitive marketplace of disc being among so many retailers will have any impact on how often and how quickly games go on sale on the PlayStation Store?
No, because I think the sales are responses to Steam. They're not responses to physical brick and mortar stores. And I think the only way that you could make a coherent argument that were true, if you were being intellectually honest about it, is that if you went and you said, if the deals changed every day because
on store,
right? Because if you were going to tell me Sony's doing these sales to, I don't know what you're if you would say it this way, but like to undermine physical. Right, or to undermine Walmart. If they were doing that, we would see when KCD 2 is $37 on Amazon, it would be $35 on PSN. And when Stalker 2 is $40 on Amazon, it would be $38 on PSN. You get what I'm saying? If Sony was doing sales because of brick and mortar stores, they would be trying to match brick and mortar stores. What they're doing is trying to get you to buy games.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not. That's why I'm not concerned about all these fucking doomsday scenarios that people are coming up with to justify this righteous indignation they have. Because first of all, every single image of look, the disc is this and the digital is this and blah 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 blah. On a different day, I could probably find the reverse. And that's the thing, right? KCD2 they were using KCD2 as an example. Last week when this was all going on, KCD2 was full price on the PSN store, and I think it was $34 on Amazon. Guess what? KCD2 is $27.99 on PSN right now.
Cool.
It's cheaper than the image that's out there.
Yeah.
So I think the only point I'm making is that the digital sales on PSN don't line up to physical. So if it was like trying to undermine each other, or they cared about physical sales and so they're doing these deals, they would match up more. What happens is PSN has a sale, Walmart has a sale. And outside of like GameStop used trade-in deals, which this doesn't affect, outside of the fact there will be no more GameStop used trade-in deals. Yep. You can't get, I saw the Mass Effect trilogy was $5.99 on PSN.
Wow. Yeah.
Show me that on physical. If anyone can find me a time where Amazon has been selling Mass Effect Legendary Edition for $5.99, I'm not going to do anything because I'm saying this publicly on the internet, but I will be very surprised. Yeah. And that's an outlier. This is not to say that tomorrow Ghost of Yotei is going to be $5.99. But what I am saying to you is, just as often as you're finding deals that are better on PSN, sure, they're better on there's just as many deals on PSN that are better than physical. Sure. So I think. Yeah, I think to me that's like my biggest issue with a lot of it is like, I think if we're going to be having these debates, we need to be and having these conversations and trying to push Sony towards something. Because listen, I'm an all digital person, but like to some degree, the ownership thing worries me. Quite frankly, like, I don't believe the doomsday scenario is going to happen. I don't believe that one day I'm going to wake up and Sony just went, yeah, Walmart's gone. All your games are mine. Buy them again. They're not going to do that. It doesn't make any fucking sense. No. And they're also not going to be like, oh, Walmart doesn't have discs anymore. Well, guess what? Ghost of Yotei is $120. Suck it, gamers. That they're not going to do that, because then you're just not going to buy the games. Okay, all of these conversations.
From my side, I don't know where you thought I'd fall on this. I actually think that the competitive aspect of this, or the anti-competition part of this, I think it's complicated because I am in strong agreement with you. I don't think that they ever worry about the price of brick and mortar stores and their pricing. I'm sure that sometimes they have the little bit of a thought of, well, of course we still prefer when people buy digital. So times where we can reasonably put games on sale, even if it's not something they're checking and trying to match, the fact that pressure's out there might mean that they might think about sales a little bit more often. But I don't think it's a huge factor. I think the main thing is, are you going to buy the game? And if you're consistently off price by enough compared to Steam, might that draw someone, or in this case, Steam, Xbox, or Nintendo? And if you're off too much by any of those metrics, might someone fall out of your ecosystem and into another? Because that's what they don't want. They've recently said that they want to focus on trying to extract more money out of the player base that they have, which is an interesting thing to say, but it's also like the most business thing you can say, because it's exactly what a business wants. Is they want as many people as they can get, but once they reach the market that they can reach and it's hard to expand, then they just want to try and get more money out of the people who are already bought into it. That doesn't mean that they're going to have that by way of their games being always more money. But what that might mean is, if you're only buying on the PlayStation Store, even if they go on sale as often as they do, they're still getting a bigger cut, and they have ultimately more control over that than they do retailers. And of course, you get rid of the used market, which still comes back into the conversation of ownership, right? Because all of that looking through, I think that there are concerns, take the concern away from like a ownership in the sense of your ability to sell it. Let's think about families who want to like loan the game to their cousin. That kind of goes out of the window. You can't do that unless you do what we do. But if you're a family that's got 2 PlayStations and you're trying to share it with your kids, but eventually you also want to let your cousin borrow it, you just can't do it. You can't pull it off. But all that to say, the competitive part of it, I get that the argument is that once the competition ground is gone, they technically can, and there's no counterbalance. There's no other product and no other place to get the product that can go, oh, we'll do it for cheaper. But Sony also manufactures these discs for PlayStation 5. They control the price in which they sell the disc to people. And if they want to make one more competitive than the other, right now they could go, hey, if you want to do disc, we're going to charge you double what we charge you now to put it on disc. And so game companies will go, well, we're going to charge more too. And then that would drive the price of it up in store anyway. So that's less of a thing to me. It's like you said, a lot of it comes down to ownership, because I just think it'd be ideal for game preservation is something you and I think I think we kind of often disagree on it. I think we both agree that there's a need for it to a degree, but I think we also understand, even though I think we have different cutoff points, of to some degree, it's almost impossible to preserve every form of every game in every light. So I think my stance is always as much preservation as you can reasonably do. One of the things that gets me on this is you have some of the games that are physical right now, like don't you have Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions? Yeah, see? That's what I thought. Bless you. Leave him.
Sorry.
So Shattered Dimensions is a great example of a game that I have a PS3 and I could go to the PlayStation Store right now. I cannot find that game because of licensing agreements, but the disc is still out there. So that game is around for people to interact with and buy, because there was a physical version that the license can't have been revoked for. Now, the license was still revoked for you selling new copies, right? You could eventually you have to stop selling those, but the discs that are out there are still able to be used. That's why I'm such a big proponent of finding some way to give me a sense of ownership over that license to where I can transfer it. Because if I decide I never care to play Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions again in my life, I can sell that license and that version of the game to someone who does want to have that experience, and it's not lost to the world. Some people just seem to not find that important, and that kind of bums me out, because there are really great games that happen to have licensed content in them. And again, going back to mixtape, it's kind of cool that mixtape are like, yeah, we're getting permanent licenses on these songs so that we don't ever have to worry about this game being taken down or having to be updated to not include the licensed music, because the music completely plays into how the story is working. So you want to make that thing, but it's unreasonable for me to go, hey, Microsoft, or hey, Gran Turismo, you should pay Ford way more millions of dollars to have endless licensing on their cars. I know that's not a feasible thing, but that's the only way that the current digital market would let a digital only game continue to be in existence forever. It's either that, or let the ones that are selling throughout the permissible sell period have a license that I can choose to sell. And then be smart. Become the GameStop. Go, this is a PlayStation license. If you sell this license to someone and you get monetary gain, we take a percentage. That seems beneficial for Sony. And beneficial for players, and it's like a weird middle ground that I would love to see. My preferred version would be for me to also be able to go, here's my license, send it to this account for 2 weeks, and then it comes back to me because it's still mine. I'm letting them borrow it. But I can see why they would not want to do that. But at least letting me sell it and be like, hey, I'll sell this to you for $20.
I personally think, first off, that you would get your little Lone Chris Plague Tale for 2 weeks before you got your selling. Here's the thing. I have two,
because they stand to make more money off of selling and taking a cut of the profit.
No, they don't. Not really. Think about the long term, right? Think about the turnover, right? This is just my opinion, but like objectively, callback. If I let you borrow, let's say I let you borrow KCD, and I'm like, dude, I'll give you my license for a week, but I want it back because I want to keep playing it. Mm-hmm. You get that license, you love KCD, you go spend $70 on KCD. Mm-hmm. You sell me your copy of KCD 2 for $15 and they make 37 cents. The borrowing to me makes more sense than, quite frankly, both make sense. Like, we're talking like options. Like, I would just do both.
Yeah, sure. Well,
but if I was looking at which one is going to make me more money.
If every game has got a game trial, then you've already solved that.
Sure. But look, I don't know. I think I have two things, right? Like, first of all, my biggest problem with the game's preservation shtick is that it's not about game preservation, because we don't need to do that. The ESRB has 2 copies of every single game in existence. It's already preserved. It's not about game preservation. It's about you getting to play what you want when you want it. That's a different argument. It's not game preservation because our games are preserved already.
No, the question is, on a technicality, you're right. They are preserved somewhere, though they're also preserved on a medium that can, and that's another thing. Like even then, like right when you buy a disc, it's still only yours for as long as the disc stays in working order, and that can degrade over time. But it's still something. But I do want to.
I don't buy that argument either from the digital people. That argument's insane. Disc rot's not real unless you don't take care of your shit.
Oh yeah, I don't think. I have PS1 discs that are in perfect.
Yeah, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying if I'm talking a little bit of shade on the physical people, you digital people sound just as stupid when you say shit like that. That's not a real thing.
I don't know what the fuck disc rot is. I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
It's fake.
Now, taking shit care of a disc and having it get scratched to hell, sure, that exists.
Sure. Exactly.
But that's a controllable variable. But what I'm trying to say for all of that, right, is damn, I missed it. It's okay, Chris. You were on something, I think. So continue on. I do know what it was. Apologies. It was specifically in relation to preservation. Okay. Preserving a game to what end? What I would say is that just like we focus on trying to make movies enjoyable by as many people, and I don't mean without monetary, I think they should, every movie as reasonable as possible and every album as reasonable as possible should be available for you to buy or somehow interact with in a way in where money is changing hands. And I think that the same is true of games as often as you can realistically do it. The ESRB having 2 copies of every game just means the game's in existence. But if nobody can interact with that game, to what end is it being preserved? I think that that's an important distinction, because if all we can say is nobody can watch the Titanic anymore besides the people who are at the ESRB who can go pull out the physical thing, then that doesn't matter. You've preserved the tape. You have preserved a physical item. You haven't preserved the concept of the film. And that's the same thing with games. You haven't preserved the concept of the game, which is what you interact with. You've only preserved one version of the medium in which it was stored on. And on a technicality, it's correct. But I think people who want to should be, and I say this because piracy and emulation and doing everything for free can come into the game. And do I care that people pirate? No, because I think even at that point, Nintendo shouldn't care that someone wants to play.
Yeah, if you can't buy it, pirate it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and straight and say it. I am actually a big fan of that. If they remove your ability to do it, I think that you should
I'm not even going to be a hypocrite. If you can pirate it, pirate it. I don't give a fuck. But like, you need to call it something else, because it's not about game preservation, dude. It's not. It's about you.
What would you call it?
Let me just hold on. I wouldn't call it anything, because I don't think it's a valid argument. And the reason I say this is because maybe I'm wrong, but like, let me give you an example. There was you probably would have no idea about this. There was a girl earlier this year who wrote a book called The Age of Scorpius. Right.
Okay.
And it is a fucking horrendous book. Like bad books get 3 stars on Goodreads, and this has 1.5.
Yeah.
And this is not like 400 reviews. It's thousands of reviews. This book is bad. The book is gone now. You can't buy it. You can't read it. You can't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. Should she have to sell that book forever because she put it out in the ether?
No.
Okay. So why does Activision, Sony, Microsoft, I understand. Hold on. I understand what I sound like when I say what I'm about to say, because it sounds like, again, like I'm gargling the balls of Sony and I'm trying to defend them. But what I'm trying to say is that your rights to you don't have the right to access anything.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't think you do either.
That's the point. It's much more acceptable to people if I put out the book I've been writing about and talking about. Let's say in a 6 months it's done and it's out, and people fucking hate it. Nobody would blame me for being like, I'm taking it off the market, I'm not selling it anymore. Sure. Nobody would stop me. People do the same shit, but they would not have the same conversation with Sony. And the reason that people are going to say that, and it's with any of these publishers, we're just using Sony as shorthand, but any of these publishers, all right? A lot of the delisted games we're talking about are Activision and Marvel shit.
Yep.
And Disney and licensed movies.
Yep. Or, like I said, racing games with car licenses that are They rely on something else to be licensed into them. Yeah.
Now, this is not me saying Rockstar should have gotten this is not me not saying, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not saying that Rockstar shouldn't have had the foresight to get perpetual licenses for the music in their games, because the original experience is made by the music. But what I am saying is that just because something exists in any form does not mean that you get it.
Yeah.
I think we only have those arguments because these are big companies. So people are like, oh, well, whatever. They don't get to do this. But when you boil it back to, I put something out, I sold it, and now I've taken it off the market, you would not hold the same energy for me. I don't mean you in general. I just mean the royal you, sure. Right? You would not hold that same energy for me because I'm an individual person.
So I think that's, I love that you said it, because I think it's a completely fair standpoint, and I think I completely agree with you. If this girl put a book out, this is also, it's funny we're having this conversation on the back end of physical. Part of why I'm a big fan of physical is because I think that sometimes it is interesting to have something be put out there and then someone regret it and go, hey, I don't want to keep selling this, but then there's still some remnant of it out there.
I wish I had interact
with and see. That's awesome, right? I think that that's such an interesting thing to do. But I 100% support the idea that the author should be able to go, I thought I wanted to sell this. I thought that this was something I wanted to put out there. I have since changed my mind on that, and I will no longer be selling it. That's what makes physical media so awesome, is that when you have physical media, there's a version of it out there. And one of the cool things about it from an actual preservation standpoint is that oftentimes, even then, it will slowly, eventually disseminate out into the internet or someplace in where more and more people can over time experience this thing that at one point in time was considered not there. But I do support to your point, if an author releases something and it's not released in a physical form at all, and the only way it's available is through some kind of digital means and where it requires a license that they will then revoke. As much as I don't like it, I think one individual, the creative individual behind it, going, I no longer want this to be out there to be representative of something, I support. But when you look at a game, like, if you look at any game, like I think an interesting example may be Concord and the fan servers in Sony. I think there's a big difference between the creative person who decided to spearhead Concord versus Sony, who just goes, this is a product. I think if someone can manage to reverse engineer the stuff needed to let Concord run, I'm not going to say that someone has the right to access it, but why shouldn't it just be available for them to do? It wasn't the same thing as that. But all I really want to get at is, just because a company no longer wants to put the effort into selling it does not mean that it should not be something that is accessible through some way. And it's why I'm a big fan of the idea, not always the execution, definitely when it gets pushed back sometimes. But it's why I'm such a big fan of the idea of, what is it? Creative Commons, when something goes into, why can't I think of the wording of it, Chris?
I know what you're talking about. It's when the copyright expires.
Yeah, it's when the copyright expires and anyone can use it for, it's why we're seeing Winnie the Pooh horror stories. Public domain. Thank you.
That's it.
I think public domain is such a cool
most
idea.
Obvious word.
Yeah, because public domain just says, whether or not you think they're good or anybody thinks they're worth reading, this short story from Edgar Allan Poe you can do whatever you want to with it. You can read it for free. If someone wants to make a book out of it and print it so that you can have it in a book form, they're free to do so, and you pay them for what they brought to the table. Or you can just go and find it to experience it for free. I think that's awesome, and I wish games would end up that way. Unfortunately, Disney kept paying lawmakers to push back the public domain thing so that now things can be in public domain for damn near forever. But at least at some point, it does go, hey, now Steamboat Willie is just Steamboat Willie, and it can just be whatever anybody wants to be. And I think ultimately that's a good thing for creative endeavors. I think, but also just from an entertainment endeavor, it can be interesting to go back and look at what people found entertaining in 1946 and be like, oh, damn, there's aspects of this that are still entertaining today and aspects that are not as entertaining. And you can just go off and study that work. That's a good thing. So you might be right. Maybe the word of preservation can carry this loaded aspect to it. But I think ultimately, the more games that people can continue to play with less barriers, I don't think money has to be an aspect. But when applicable, I don't think if one way of games preservation means that Nintendo says, yeah, we'll make this game more easily playable for everybody so that it's preserved as an experience, but we want you to pay for it, I think that's a fair trade. You get what I'm saying? Like it's fair to do that. And if someone doesn't want to do that, that's why I kind of am supportive of pirating. Because if there's no legal way to obtain something, it sounds dumb, but I think 99% of the time, once there's no further legal way to obtain something, I think most creatives, if they were still alive, would go, yeah, I don't give a shit if you pay me. I don't care if you pay someone for it. You think Edgar Allan Poe gives a shit if somebody pays $5 for his thing now? He's dead. But I'm sure if you could ask his spirit, he'd be like, I just want to know that people are still resonating with the thing that I made and had the opportunity to. As somebody who is creative, I have that feel. I want my music and anything I've ever created to just live on for as long as there's someone who might have interest in it.
I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. I just feel like I'm gargling balls at this point, trying to like make my point.
Well, of course, I'm not trying to make you feel like you have to take that position, but I understand it.
It's my position that just because you want something doesn't mean you're allowed to have it. And for me, I think it's hypocritical if I say I can remove anything I want from the internet, but somebody else can't. Because I'm sorry, just because they're a big company, if the rules are different for them, like why are the rules different for them? Because this is going to sound like such a soapboxy conservative bullshit thing I'm about to say, but it's how I feel about it. If you believe in law and order being equal for everyone, then if Sony doesn't want to sell you something anymore, they don't have to fucking sell it to you. And I'm not saying that they should be able to pull licenses out of your that you already purchased out. That is not what I'm saying to you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, if Sony doesn't want or whoever doesn't want Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions to be sold anymore, you don't get to buy it. It's not a matter of, well, I want to play Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, so I should be able to get it at GameStop for $3.99. You can play Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. It's going to cost you $250 on eBay. Mm-hmm. But the thing with it is,
but that only works with physical. The moment you take physical away, but Sony does have all the power.
The next point I'm going to make is that I own Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions digitally, and I can still download it.
No, which is awesome.
So I'll join your side when they shut down when I can't download my PS3 games anymore. Sure, yeah. We're not there yet, so I'm not going to get into a fight that's not real.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not until they actually do it. But the only reason I even
they left it open that they'll close it. It says foreseeable future. It does not say forever.
Yep.
Like I read it, I saw it, I know, but I'm choosing.
What I will tell you is that it happening with the movie side is a bad foreboding nature of what could come and how quickly it can come.
I think if you told me, and then they do. This is the funniest part: is that Amazon, iTunes, all of them, they'll do this. Mm-hmm. But Sony is a games company. You're not. I personally am not concerned that their movie infrastructure that they don't do anymore to begin with is not good.
They're owned by Sony, who is also a movie company. So I think there's something to be said about there.
I don't know. I don't have any more to say. Like, this sucks. I hope my one biggest takeaway from all of this is I'm positive Sony has more to say, and we're reacting early. Whether we're reacting wrong or not is a different question. But I would not be surprised if closer to the PS6 we hear more about a revamp to the PS Store and stuff that we're thinking about right now is going to come. That's my hope. Whether it's real or not is a different question.
What I think is really interesting is you might be right, and I think there's also a thing of, this might sound much better if this comes alongside of, hey, we're stopping doing this because one of the things we're trying to do in the future is people keep talking about this portable PS6, which I don't give a shit about. I still would want the option for disc, and there's plenty of ways to get by having your local console be a licensed machine to check your license on a disc and still letting you play it on the handheld PS6. Given the way that handhelds have gone, it's crazy to even really be super worried about that. But not having it be buttressed by some piece of news and where it feels like it lines up with in some way. Like if the news is, this is what we're doing to digital ownership alongside this, then this doesn't matter. Like you can look at this and have this piece of news drop, and then on the other note be like, starting today, all your licenses will be transferable. You'll have an ownership token. There'll be this, and that, and these are the rights you can expect to have. Okay, cool. This is suddenly a lot better. But when you don't have this or even news news of, well, we're making this move to try and better support our hopes for a portable PS6, and we want every game that you buy to be playable on this portable PS6 moving forward. Again, all of that makes the framing of this immediately better.
But they can't say that yet. That's my point.
Well, then why do they need to say this? That's my point. Is if you can't say those things yet, why? What? This genuine open question. Why? Why does it matter that you say this now? This, and then the piece of news that followed, which is quickly we'll go through. There is an update on PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita. Changes start this year in select markets, followed by global changes in 2027. After nearly 2 decades of supporting the PS3 console generation, we wanted to let you know we will be closing the PlayStation Store on PS3 as well as on PS Vita. PlayStation Store on PS3 will close in select markets starting this year, followed by global closures for PS3 and PS Vita next year. That means new content purchases will no longer be possible once the store closes on these devices. To ease the transitions, players will still be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future. As the PlayStation Store continues to evolve to support modern commerce systems, including updated payment processing standards, PS3 and PS Vita are no longer able to support these updates at the level required. As a result, we will need to close PlayStation Store on these devices in the time frames as allows. So that is pretty much where we are, and I think it's pretty... Look, it'd be way worse. Yeah, I would have literally been like, who in PR thought it was a good idea to say we're killing physical and we're completely shuttering every aspect of PSN for PS3? If that would have been the announcement, like, hey, after we close this, there's no downloads or anything, that would have been the craziest piece of news.
Yeah, that would have...
Instead, this is, and I only mean from a framing standpoint, why would you go, hey, this is all digital future, but you know that digital thing that you did in the past, this is going to show you how it can die and, and not be this thing. So gladly it's not that. But it is still interesting because it is like a microcosm of this, hey, we're talking about going completely digital, but then we're immediately explaining to you the consequences that can come of dated technology and the ever-changing demands of security. And there is a reasonable question to say, is there a world in which 20 years from now, the PS5 will not be able to access a store because it is no longer able to be kept up to date? Or has the PSN been built now from PS4 onward in a way that can continue to scale up and support these systems in eternity alongside our newest systems at that point in time? And it would have been cool to see that as a piece of information in addition to this, because it's a piece of concern.
Yeah, see, I think part of the problem is that you're not the only person I've even seen talk about this, you're expecting too much information from them right now. These were not information delivery systems. These were enjoy the bad news and the 4th of July. That's what this was.
So you just ruined my 4th of July?
Didn't ruin mine. I'm all digital.
No joke, Chris. I told you I got my PS3 back. Once they announced this, I started calling the dude. I was like, dude, something's going to have to start moving because I need to get my PS3 back so I can buy anything I still might want to buy that I can buy, or at least determine if I want to buy it digital and eventually lose access to it, or if I want to buy it physical. And I was like, prices might be about to shoot up on physical PS3 games as a result of this. So I was like, get on it.
Yeah, thank God you got a friend who has almost everything.
Right. But go ahead. To your point, God, people like me are expecting too much information.
Yeah, I mean that's just a whole separate thing. I don't think you were not going to get all this stuff. My point was more on the store. I think the PS3 was the last time this will matter, and I think that's kind of obvious. That's why I don't think this is a big deal. Right now, PS4, PS5, and PS6 games will be on the same store. And I would imagine PS4, PS5, PS6, PS7, PS8, PS9 will all exist on the same store. So it won't matter if the PS5 can't support whatever fucking liquid cooled Bitcoin we're using in 2087. Like, the store will still be the store and it will still have the stuff that's on it. Again, that's my utopian hope.
I'm glad you clarified there, because that is important. I do strictly mean, will the PS5 games be playable? Because then there's an option. You have the option of moving forward.
Yeah.
into
I
a new
don't think
device that
they're
can still
going-
access those games. I think the biggest thing that hurts here is that we have not gotten anywhere closer on backwards compatibility. And what they could, of course, do is take all those ROMs and move them into the new store and say, hey, we figured out PS3 backwards compatibility. This is how you can do it, which is a curiosity. But one thing I am a little curious on here right now, their go-to for backwards compatibility is still through game streaming. How does this closure of this, is PS3 game streaming going to go away as a result of this?
I would have to imagine. No, because they have all the games downloaded on some PS3s in some server farm in Area 51, and it's all fine.
Yeah, I'm wondering how those servers work, though. Like, do those games go through the old PSN to still connect to the streaming output?
Dude, I mean,
that's interesting.
The actual answer is let's fucking hope so. Because if they're doing that, that probably means there's something coming on the back end. That's the thing. I think, again, I'm an optimist, I guess, but like, I think there's a world where we're all freaking out about the worst possible outcome when we might just get a medium outcome or even a good outcome.
Medium rare outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're freaking out a little bit, but you could always find out that like Sony goes, hey, by the way, we figured out PS3 backwards compatibility. Eligible titles will come forward and you could buy other ones. Your discs won't work because there's no disc drive on the PS6. We could live in a utopia. We don't know because we don't have the information. I imagine that there's more coming, and I'm not surprised we didn't get, the PS6 is an only digital console, or we're doing this handheld. There's no surprise. I'm surprised that people are surprised that they didn't announce the PS6 with this bad news or the PS6 handheld. But what do you think? I've said what I need to say on the subject.
I think so too. You know what we're going to do real quick? We're going to move through a couple of the questions to round this episode off. We're going to try and move through them quickly because I knew this episode was going to end up being sort of dense because this is a weird topic. And I don't think anything you've said today is in regards to any of this is inherently wrong. I think it's just fucking complicated, and it's. Look, do I think it's ultimately reasonable for you to say that, yes, we might be expecting too much information, or at least we weren't going to get the amount of information that we were hoping for or expecting in relation to it? But I would say that my push would be to hope that when you do things like this and you have news like this, that you do come with information for the people who want that sense of security, because you do run the risk when you do things this way, you run the risk of purging customers unnecessarily. And even though future information may lead them to go, oh, there's a version of that here, does that really matter if by the time that you've done this, you've led them to believe, like, depending on how things go, this is just a worse version of PC platform, where PC is also digital only, but at least it's an open system. And then you go, I'm going to go to PC. And then once they're on PC, even if you change things, they may not want to come back because you go, oh, well, what about PS3 games? Well, I have RC PS3 and I can just play them there, this and that. Look, I'm not saying these are defenses that some people will use. And it just comes down to, for me, the more information you can give, the better. I would hope that they'd be able to pull that off.
My last point, and I think this is going to be a sobering point, but the one a lot of the physical people, I say it like there's factions. A lot of the people who are really upset about the physical part need to understand. We don't need to say the number of PSN games in my account. Fuck it. I'll say I think there's over 1,300 games in my account through trials, through demos, through PS Plus.
Yeah.
The sobering reality is, if you're going to leave your library and PSN for PC because of this, I already made up your share, dog. And that's what Sony's banking on. Sony knows that I'm not going anywhere, and they know that I'm going to keep buying games. And for every one game you would have bought on PlayStation that you're now buying on PC digitally, okay, you're going to go to Steam and buy digitally, or you're going to go to buy all your games on GOG, and I got nothing to say to you. But if that's what you're going to do, I've already made it up for you. And there's a Colin Moriarty who also made it up. And there's you who also made it up, because you're probably not going to leave the PlayStation ecosystem. even, kicking and screaming. And that's the thing. That's what Sony is banking on. And I genuinely think that's why Sony is going to be fine. Even if the PS6 console sales take a hit, they're still going to have entrenched customers like me who are spending money on the store and not thinking about this. And I am never going to not buy a PlayStation console because, as I said 5 minutes ago, little callback, there are 1,300 games on my account, some of which I can't access, but there are that many. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. Chris, I would be lying if I said that this has not made me at least more seriously consider whether taking the dive to just go ahead and moving to PC would be worth it. And I'll give PlayStation their flowers on one thing. Look, I'm gonna be real. Most of the games that I really want to play, I can play on the machines I already have and replay. And I can just play on them. I already have them. So it's about moving forward. And a lot of those games would be playable on PC and I could go there. And I'd still have my PlayStation to play the old games I wanted to play whenever. But to give PlayStation their flowers, the main thing that's making me question that is if I were to move entirely off of, this is more of a talk for next gen because I have a PS5. Why would I not keep going? But for next gen, moving to PC would be that Sony tends to have games that I very much enjoy that now they have pulled off of PC, and I'll give them credit, smartly so, because it is one thing that might actually keep me wanting to buy on their system, even if it just means that I only buy their games on their systems and buy a system for that. That's still better than me being a completely gone customer. And there's something to that. If you bring quality often enough, it makes it hard to want to put you down.
I guess so. I don't know. We've been recording a long time, but I'm going to go to PC is maybe the stupidest thing I've ever fucking heard. Not just from you. Everyone who's saying that, stupid. It is just as digital, dog. No, what are you talking about?
No, it is.
I don't mean, and I'm not even being a dick to you. I mean in general. No. What fucking world is that better?
It's digital. But it's an open marketplace. Your licenses don't do exactly the same thing. You can buy versions that have no DRM. And I think what it really comes down to, you said it earlier, the real reason is that if you're already there and you're already stuck there, and now console is just a less open PC, truly, because before, physical was a real reason to keep buying on console. If you cared about physical, PC has long been moved past that. If you're already going to be in a digital state, Steam tends to be a better deal. You don't have to pay for things like PlayStation Plus. Most games are cross-play now, cross-gen. So separate from exclusives, you can still play games with your friends. Most of the systems support Discord. There's no real reason short of just wanting to say you own these 1,300 games. And if you already have a PS5, you're not leaving those games behind necessarily. I can go to my PlayStation 5 and play them at any point in time I want to. But at least on PC, you have more options, more storefronts, better pricing, typically speaking, and you have things like the prices haven't raised on PC just yet. I think for the most part, a lot of the games still cap out at $60. You still have things like not having to pay for, online services for playing your games. Those are points that can totally pull someone over. So I don't think it's fair to outright say it's a stupid move. It's a big move, and I think it's a huge one that you'd have to consider before you do it. But I don't think it would be that difficult for me to do outside of I like to play on TV, and Steam Machine is really the first thing right now that is focused on making PC a nice experience while playing from a couch. But it's not quite the power level that I want to be. But if more start to do it, I could see myself doing it. Doesn't mean I will, but I could. And I think it's not nearly as difficult as it would have once been. But all that said, Chris, in mind for that, Shahudi MD, longtime listener, longtime patron, mouse versus keyboard, or mouse keyboard versus controller, rather. What genre works best in either? Is there a genre where you will only play a game with a certain input? Chris, in the grand PC versus console debate, keyboard, mouse
and keyboard's better.
Versus controller.
Mouse and keyboard's better. Objectively, at least for first-person shooters, I wouldn't want to play fucking God of War on a mouse, but no. I think it depends on the genre.
What's a genre that you think is best on controller?
Third person.
I want to say, even though I don't play them often, I think fighting games make way more sense on a controller than keyboard mouse. If those are the only two options, of course, the ideal option, if you really care, is a fighting stick, which is much closer to a controller than a keyboard.
I would argue
mouse.
it's much closer to a keyboard or mouse. I'm just saying.
Really? Like a fighting stick? You think that that's more close to a keyboard and mouse?
Yeah. I think it's ergonomically anyway. You're pressing a bunch of keys on a large flat surface and controlling it with a mouse, basically.
I think that this being your little movement thing is just so much closer to a joystick that I think that that's closer, realistically speaking. I think the problem with a fighting game is usually in a fighting game, aren't you doing WASD and the numpads to be like your movement?
I would never play
like
a fighting game on a keyboard.
I would never. That sounds awful in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, first person, it's always keyboard and mouse. If my skill level was up to par, I'm better on a controller. But that's because I'm not good with a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, you're not practiced in it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that'd be my thing. Is I have never even seriously tried a first-person shooter with keyboard and mouse because I would rather hang myself.
I will say I played Halo Infinite with a keyboard and mouse, and I was significantly better at that than I was on controller. But like Marathon, I tried, and I'm not good at it because I played 200 hours on controller. I can't go to a mouse now.
Yeah, maybe it's a win in the experience you introduce yourself to the keyboard and mouse that you can fuck yourself up. Because like we were talking about, it's all about muscle memory, right? And like if your muscle memory is bound to a controller, you have to undo that as you build muscle memory for keyboard and mouse for that game. That's rough.
Exactly.
I'm not a big keyboard and mouse person. I'd say the only games where I think it makes more sense realistically is MMOs. I think there's still room. Like I don't think DC Universe Online was any better on keyboard and mouse than it is on controller, but that's because that game was designed to be real-time
PS3
combat.
first, right?
It is PS3 PC day one, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure.
No, I just mean that they built it for PS3 and released it on PC.
Oh yes, it was, and it's built like an action game. Like you play it like an action game. So it's honestly, it's fucking like God of War for like you're hitting combo buttons on a thing, you know. So when you look at stuff like that, it's like it's more of a Devil May Cry hack and slash style thing, just with MMO trappings. But I think like classic MMOs with like point and click combat and stuff like that, it's hard to map that to a controller. And I think that there's reasons that you've never seen World of Warcraft come to console and RuneScape, original RuneScape, never come to console, because even though now they probably should, because all the consoles let you use keyboard and mouse, so it's just a new territory for you to at least bring people in. People don't play them on. You wouldn't imagine them being keyboard and mouse, being controller. I think it's interesting. I think that's literally it. Like I don't know how I'd play RuneScape with a controller, so I think it's going to fall in line with that. Games like Silk Road Online. I just don't see them working as well. Social games where a lot of the social aspects are through text, which I think has shifted considerably. I don't think as many games do that anymore because voice chat has become so popular. It was even popular back with Final Fantasy 11 Online with like using TeamSpeak. I don't know, Chris, you don't seem like someone who had a PC heavy phase ever in your life. I did. So I think that's also why it'd be easier for me to go back to PC. But even in the PC heavy phase, I fucking hated playing Morrowind on keyboard and mouse. I did it because there was no other option, but not very fun. Much better experience on a controller, in my opinion. I hated playing Fable that way too. But we have one other question here I want to get to today. Porkchop says, we did it. We beat EA in their microtransaction overreach when it comes to CFB 27. Do you think this will be a wake-up call to these studios that they are pushing us too far and that we truly can win if we all come together? Or is this just a small victory that will still bury us in the war against microtransaction overreach? I'm going to be 100% honest. I saw this and I don't know what the hell this is about. I'm assuming that something happened. So this is College Football 27.
Yeah, I was reading that they had just ridiculous microtransactions. Like you could basically buy a fully set up franchise character. You could pay. It was like the double XP thing in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, except it was like you can pay to be done, basically. Yeah, like it was just crazy shit.
Which is funny because I think 2K's been doing that in NBA for quite a while.
Yep. People will accept it when it's stuff they want.
Yeah. So after players discovered that college football had microtransactions in its single player modes. Oh. Also interesting. Less worrisome from a competitive standpoint, but still weird. I'm maybe I'm just a pessimist for this episode, and Chris views himself as the optimist. We'll see how that goes. To answer the question as directly as I can, I think that this is ultimately a whimper victory in what has become a cyclical cycle. I mean, it's a cyclical thing for EA here. When was the last time that we saw a game have a similar turnaround with microtransactions? Was it not EA with Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Yeah, it was Battlefront 2.
Which tells you that what? They learned nothing. They knowingly gave time between the two to try it again and hope it would go over better this time, or Occam's razor, the management at EA has shifted around because corporations can never hold on to people for very long, and the new management didn't even know that the last management tried this and we're just like, yeah, do it. And we're just right back at somebody else thinking that this is the right way to extract the most money out of every player that you can. So I think enjoy the victory, but understand that in so far as this is a war, Tom would tell you that even if you just want to go down to EA, you haven't even won the war against EA. You've won a battle in which they will temporarily back down for this one title. Other games that they have will still continue to have microtransactions. And then eventually they're going to come out with a game in probably 6 or so years that pushes the envelope too far once more. And we start this process all over again. What would you say, Chris?
I would say you're probably right about it.
Unfortunate.
Yep.
I was going to not include this one, but we got through that one pretty quick. This one I think could be quick because unfortunately I think the answer is more difficult. RMG0731, one of our newer patrons, says, any good recommendations for co-op games? My brother and I do a slow burn once a week game night. We have moved from Baldur's Gate 3 to Resident Evil 9 using like a local swap controller and finding ourselves playing For the King through PS Plus, always looking for stuff to come after. There are games that Chris and I have played, and I think it's going to depend. It sounds like what's happening is that you're doing this in person with Baldur's Gate 3 and RE9, talking about local swap controller. If these are games in where you are looking to still do them online, I think that there are good examples. So I think most of them are still the big Haze-like games. I think A Way Out, It Takes Two, even though I think It Takes Two is honestly best played with a spouse. And then, of course, their most recent game, Split Fiction. But if you're wanting specifically games to play together, I don't know, man. You did say further down in there that your brother's a bit more of a Nintendo person, and it depends on what you mean by that. But there's a game in PS Plus that me and my wife and my daughter had really fun playing, and it is a game called Spitlings. And I actually talked about it on this podcast one time. It is like a little action platformer arcade game, and at least it was on PS Plus. I assume it still is. And it's just a fun little, like, Chris, do you ever play N+? You even know what that is?
Yeah, I've played it.
It's kind of like that. It's just a bunch of levels, and you move through, and they get progressively harder, and you're just, it's exactly what you thought. It's an arcade game that can be played with up to 4 players. And it's chaotic and fun. If you're looking for something story-focused, that's not really that. There is a story, but it doesn't really matter. Do you have any go-to co-op games that come to mind for you?
Halo, the Master Chief Combat Evolved or Campaign Evolved, coming out in July on PlayStation 5. I mean, honestly, I didn't play a lot of co-op games. I mean, I would say, honestly, like I said as a joke, but Halo's a good pick. You played Baldur's Gate. Reanimal is supposed to be pretty good. Came out last year. I haven't played it yet, but I mean, honestly, I'd say go to Xbox. Gears, Halo, both great picks.
Yeah. I don't think that's wrong. I'm trying to think if there's any other games that I know are. It depends on what you want from co-op, because like survival games are a great fit for that. And there's so many different variations of what survival means. That like Grounded is colorful and kid-like and a little scary, depending on how you feel about spiders and them looking massive to you. But then you have like horror versions of it in the forest. You have kind of traditional versions of it with something like State of Decay and something like that. There's plenty of games that kind of fit that mold. You have fantasy versions of it with something like Conan. You have sci-fi versions of it with something like Dune. You have weird mix-up versions of it that are almost like third-person isometric Diablo-like games with something like V Rising. Those are all really interesting examples that are all multiplayer, not on couch co-op, but just in general. Overcooked is one I did a little bit of. I mean, you have Minecraft. That's a good one. Overcooked was bad for me and my wife because Diablo 4, Diablo 3, those are good examples. Depending on if you like those arcade style games, you have like, I never actually got around to playing it. Chris, am I crazy in remembering that you played the Shredder's Revenge for Ninja Turtles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I don't think you played it as a co-op game, but you just played it.
No, it did not.
Yeah. Sea of Thieves, if you're looking for something a little more specifically, like you're just trying to you create a goal, you come up with it, you do your own thing, and now it's got open seas for you to do whatever you want to with it. Because there's always like Borderlands. Sackboy: A Big Adventure. I mean, and maybe that'll be it, because if he's a Nintendo guy and he likes the Nintendo platformers, Sackboy: A Big Adventure is really just like a Nintendo 3D platformer in all honesty. So it's if you haven't played it, check it out. I don't have much else. The only thing I can say is that Chris and I can both highly recommend competing with each other against number of pull-ups you can do in a way out, but more importantly, who can get the furthest score on the baseball game. And yes, I actually can't remember right now between Chris and I who won, because we kept slowly outdoing each other. And I can't remember by the time we ended who got further.
Yeah, I don't remember. We were going for distance, not number.
Yeah, we were going for as far as you could get the ball to go.
Exactly. It was a good time.
All right, Chris, that's it for me today, man. It's going to be interesting to see how this continues to kind of move along. But maybe, I feel confident in the fact that we will see and hear more information whenever Sony's ready to say it.
Yes.
I am curious to see if that 2028 is an indicative marker of when they intend to be able to share more of this. And I would be interested to see if we get like you said, late 2026 turn, kind of a splurge of information. But I still think that everything about PS6 and whether they're willing to talk about it is tied up in whether or not this AI tech component bubble is going to burst or not. Like, are those going to be? And if they keep pushing, I think Sony's just going to keep pushing the PS6 back.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think they will. I think they're just going to position it as a PS5 Pro.
Honestly, even if they call it PS6, that's
what it is.
Sort of is what it is. So we'll see. But Chris, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate you. We'll
yeah, brother.
We'll reconvene in 2 weeks and see if things feel better, worse, or if things have moved on. If you want to go over to patreon.com/nartech and give us a little as $1 per month, let us tell you that you can do that, and we will love you so much. And it will support the show and stop us from digging into our own pockets to put this out there. And one thing that we do, of course, is shout out our patrons at the end of every single episode. So without further ado, a shout out to the Boris Boar, Rom Kid 1989, Farther Damien, Ryan Goldner, Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Matt Tubbs, Sean Easton, Bailey Robertson, TT Dog 666, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villalobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, and Sean Sanarud. Thanks to each and every one of you, and we will see you next time.
Yay.